What's the stupidest thing the most intelligent person in your life believes? Story 1. My wife is the smartest person I know, but she's constantly worrying about what I call mom case scenarios. For example, she told me not to let our child walk down a street that was bordered by a wrought iron fence. Why? Because he might get impaled on the spear like points on top of the fence. Story 2. My wife speaks 3 languages and has 2 master degrees at finance and business administration. She believes basketball makes you taller and has no idea about survivor bias, even when it's explained to her. Story 3. Absolutely brilliant friend firmly believes that the average adult man could beat any given adult whitetail buck in an unarmed fight. You could just grab it by the antlers and go dead weight. Their legs are so skinny that would take it down, and then you could just choke it out, he insists. Story 4. I haven't spoken to them in years, but I played Dungeons & Dragons with a guy who was pretty close to graduating as a neurosurgeon. Listening to them rant about how masculine men only pee while standing was interesting. Story 5. I had a professor in the hard sciences that I did research with for years. One day, we were talking about something being installed in the building for 5G infrastructure, and I think I asked her a question about conspiracy theorists who were afraid of 5G. To my surprise, she told me that her husband, and 2 kids didn't have Wi-Fi at their house. BC, the jury was still out about the effect of Wi-Fi frequencies on people, and they didn't want to subject their kids to that. I thought it was a bit silly, but had no choice but to respect what I was hearing. BC, it was coming from someone I had so much respect for. Circa 2014. Story 6. I'm a Caucasian female, and was in my early 20s at this time, a super intelligent woman Caucasian. Around 40s, I'm very close to, was absolutely stunned when I told her I had a huge crush on a black gentleman. And he asked me out. She was at a loss for words, and finally told me if we got married, it would be illegal. I was speechless and so mad that I left, because I thought she was joking. No, she was raised into fully believing, probably taught from a racist grandma. I suspect that it was illegal. Thank God she no longer believes that. What's even more stunning is that her father was friends with a bunch of black musicians growing up and still adores them. I've never been so stunned at misinformation from somebody who is so educated, editing to add since people keep fixating on it. No, we live in Michigan where the laws prohibiting interracial marriage was appealed in 1883, but perhaps wasn't widely recognized until the 1967 Supreme Court case. Regardless, this was probably around 2007 to 2010, so it was far from being illegal any longer. Story 7. A wonderful, kind person I know majored in physics at a big university and firmly believe the Earth is 4,000 years old. Says it's a matter of faith and belief. He's so nice, I've never bugged him about it. Story 8. My brother of all people believes that people that have a -B blood type has either alien blood or blood from the people of Atlantis mixed with their ancestors. If you have a blood type, you're pure. I thought that he was joking with me when he was talking about that, but no, it was said in a very matter-of-fact kind of way. He is super smart, but has some out there beliefs. Story 9. My dad has a background in economics and an advanced degree. He believes that Kamala Harris having a 5-year economic plan was the definition of communism. Not that her plan was communistic, no. The very act of having a plan that lasted longer than 1 term in presidential office was communism. Edit. I feel like I should put some things out there. Yes, he voted for Trump. Yes, we fought because of it. Yes, our relationship is strained now. Yes, I am looking for every opportunity to troll him when he inevitably complains about Trump's policies, corruption, and general mismanagement by saying at least he's not a communist as dryly as possible and then singing the hostile government takeover song. For anyone not familiar, this is the song Enjoy. Story 10. My FIL has 5 college degrees and is a biologist. He mainly does an amazing job restoring nature. He did a lot of that in Yosemite. He has an absurd amount of knowledge about all kinds of things. He got all his degrees before the internet was a thing, so he knows how to do research wildly better than me. He is as stubborn as anti-vaxxer, and has been for longer than I've known him. At first I thought he may have some actual scientific insight about it, so I asked him for info. Everything he sent me was blog posts with almost no sources to back up their claims. The few that did have sources, they either misrepresented what the source said, or the source was just another thing that was clearly full of. He says what we need to do instead of vaccines is to get people to have healthier lifestyles. I agree that would be great, but it's not a replacement for vaccines. Story 11. Okay, so when I'm relaxing at home, I'm usually wearing a hoodie and shorts. Comfortable, normal, right? My extremely brilliant and rational partner finds this combination so illogical that he can't not comment on it every time. He likes to point at me and say stuff like you forgot part of the outfit, or cold arms, hot knees, my love. My darling, it's literally normal. I don't know what your problem is. Story 12. My mother is highly intelligent and is a screaming evangelical. My husband is the smartest person I know, with a measured IQ of 187 and a PhD in mathematics. He honestly believed that he is stupid. Story 13 I didn't know about most intelligent in my life. But mom was an RN and still works in the health department fields and got convinced the COVID vaccine would kill you or make you sicker than just getting COVID. So there's that. Story 14, not sure if this has already been said, but my ex-stepsister-in-law, a GP now in her 50s, fully believes that humanity only started 6,000 years ago as fully formed humans and that dinosaurs and carbon dating is wrong. Since man was the first animal created when God created the earth, obviously, she's a very religious Christian. But she's also a well-respected GP in a blue state. Story 15, one of the smartest people I know, engineer, business owner, multimillionaire, critical thinker, science lover, endlessly curious, passionate about logic reason. The works boxes that all up and compartmentalizes it so he can believe in Mormonism. Story 16, that he can only have boys because only his left testicle functions properly. I suppose it could be the right. I can't remember which one. I just know he thinks it's because one testicle produces boys and the other girls. Story 17, my wife, the PhD, doesn't understand that thunder and lightning are part of the same phenomena. Edit OMG, I just own myself with a typo. They absolutely are part of the same phenomena. I hate you autocorrect. Edit to my edit, my beautiful and wonderfully sneaky wife edited the original post. I have learned my lesson. Story 18, my aunt has a doctorate in psychology, studied biology, owns a psychological books publishing company, used to work as a psychologist. She tells me wind turbines are powered externally just to keep turning because they don't generate any power themselves. Story 19, so it's not stupid that my friend is Christian, but what's stupid is that he believes his particular version of Christianity and his interpretation of the Bible is the only real version of Christianity, and anyone who interprets it differently only does so for their personal gain and is going to. Likewise, anyone believing in any other religion is also going to. This guy's now a practicing lawyer, I'm a Buddhist, and we had three-way philosophical debates every night for about 8 months with my atheist friend. Eventually, we came to an impasse when I realized that I believed multiple types of spirituality could be valid, and he believed only as could be. At some point, it transformed from a philosophical discussion into him just trying to convert us to Christianity. In my mind, I'm like, how are you going to hold a particular set of spiritual beliefs only justified within itself, and then simultaneously say that all other systems of belief are false, and anyone who doesn't hold your beliefs are wrong? I get that a lot of people are this way, but it just blows my mind to hear from a guy I once considered the most logical person I know. Story 20, from up, down, sideways, and every turn, I've met otherwise highly intelligent people who will absolutely swear to any number of conspiracy theories that accuse officials or politicians of deception. In descending order of frequency, the moon landings never happened. Oswald did not kill Kennedy. Human activity has no effect on the climate. 911 was an act of the American government. Vaccines cause autism. I'm not speaking of cracked up and unhinged people. These are intelligent, functional, and productive individuals with rational minds. They believe this stuff with every fiber. Help. Story 21, God, but not like there might be an omnipotent being in some capacity way, but in a, well, if I didn't believe there was a God, what is stopping me from going around and doing terrible things to people way? I just stared at him confused for a while. Couldn't believe he was serious. Story 22, I work at an engineering firm. Everyone I work with are intelligent professionals, people from all over the world with various degrees and years of experience in creative problem solving. These people are smart, and yet so many are convinced by MAGA bullshit. Global warming is fake, but also caused by increased sun activity or increased nuclear reactions in the Earth's core. Any new unpopular policy that our gigantic billion-dollar company institutes is somehow the fault of radical leftists. Women's rights are under siege because of trans women in sports. Fluoride in water poisons you. COVID was fake. Vaccines are worse than COVID. And of course, they treat Elon Musk like some kind of demigod, while treating the words electric car as if it's its own punchline. It's really depressing. Story 23, flat Earth, and the ice wall, and the stars are fake, and it's all very crazy. Oh, and demons built the pyramids, not the Egyptians. So there's that. ETA, my coworker just reminded me about the flat Earth map. He literally had a fancy classroom-type giant wall map of flat Earth over his desk. If I can find the pictures we took when he was on leave, he'll share them. Story 24, my adoptive father holds a master's degree in engineering and owns several patents in the motion control industry, yet truly believes COVID was just a hoax. Even me almost dying from it wasn't enough to convince him that it was real. He said doctors were just keeping up the ruse, and I probably just had the flu. Story 25. My mom is a very, very intelligent professional accountant who still believes that trickle-down economics is actually good for everybody. She only recently stopped believing that Bush didn't intentionally crash the economy. Story 26. What's up with every single comment conflating access to education and academic accomplishments with intelligence? Of course, the PhD programmer is min-max too and doesn't know anything about anything else, but maintains the same ego and confidence. It's like y'all have never interacted with these types of people. It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson, expert in his field, complete moron outside of it, but he'll never stop saying bullshit with supreme confidence. Story 27. Was arguing with a friend of mine in college, someone I thought was one of the brightest people I'd ever met. He gave me an example to back up his argument, and I realized he was in error and told him that's just not true. He said, yes, it is. I saw it on TV. Respect level dropped significantly at that point. Story 28. Neuroscientist, awarded by ONU and CE, invented something that most of us cannot understand. What is, even if explained, do not VX as children because she don't believe in vaccines. Extra point. Her mother died from a COVID infection, still believing that quarantine was useless because people die from flu every year. Story 29. My wife is a very smart woman. I love her dearly. She does not understand many things related to whales. She reluctantly accepts that they are mammals because they breathe air and don't lay eggs, but that took some effort. She refuses to believe that dolphins are a type of whale. When I explained that they are more closely related to hippos than they are sharks, I think her brain exploded. I think the issue is that she doesn't appreciate the concept of convergent evolution and how two things can be superficially similar but actually not related at all, and vice versa. She didn't like that Wiglet Pokemon either and asked why Diglett now looks like a penis. Story 30. My mom is high up in her profession and has multiple degrees. She says tilapia aren't fish because they don't have bones, refuses to say what animal they could be instead. Story 31. My dad was a highly regarded rocket scientist with the Air Force and, as a born-again evangelical Christian, believes the Bible is 100% true and that God personally sent Trump as the savior of the United States. Story 32. As exemplified in many posts above, religious upbringing is known to stunt otherwise intelligent people. I think it is easy to understand why. Religion faith is supposed to fill in the gap between practical evidence and things you instinctively believe. In this sense, faith is probably nice. When the order is reversed, like you must believe XYZ to prove that you're faithful, religion takes a very negative turn. Story 33. My boyfriend believed contrails are chemtrails despite me showing him tons of scientific proof that it's just jet fuel exhaust in the troposphere, and says that he knows it's chemicals because he was sprayed with them when his family lived near a now defunct Air Force base in Washington State. Even had his dad tell me they tasted the chemicals being released into the air as the planes would take off. Story 34. My relative, with multiple bachelor's and master's degrees in various tech and engineering fields, believed that the government is always spying on us, and that the COVID vaccine had tracking chips in it. Story 35. That Olympic equestrian riders aren't any more skilled than weekend rodeo riders. He says it's all about the horse, and that he could probably make the Olympic equestrian team if he had their horses. Story 36. My highly educated, wealthy, socially conscious, kind parents are both devout Mormons. They believe that my dad is actually a wizard who can heal the sick with a special ritual he performs every once in a while. The older I get, the more wild this is to me. Story 37. I have a friend who is an engineer. He legitimately believes, and will not be convinced otherwise, that the earth is 5,000 years old and began when God said, "Let there be light." Story 38. My boyfriend is a genius. The stupidest thing he believes is that he doesn't deserve to succeed. He's constantly tripping himself up on purpose because he feels like it's cheating whenever he's good at something, but when he's bad, it's because he's a failure and doesn't deserve to try. Doofus. I love him so much. Story 39. To not be an organ donor because paramedics won't try to revive you so they can harvest your organs. Hospitals are just letting people die for organs. It's a totally personal choice to be a donor, but the conspiracies are a little wild. Story 40. Several rich business families in Asia believe in spiritual leaders and superstition. Things like astrology are part of our culture, and it's true that we rely on it to an extent the West questions. But I'm talking about things like if you want this project to be successful, you need to not eat onion, garlic, or meat for 3 weeks. And the donations made to absolute quacks are just mind-blowing. Story 41. The thing is, intelligence isn't general. Ben Carson was a brilliant neurosurgeon. one of the best, and doubled down hard on the pyramids being used for grain storage rather than, say, monuments and tombs. Steve Jobs was legendary at product design, yet allowed himself to be convinced eating fruit would cure his highly treatable form of cancer. The key is, once you acquire highly specialized knowledge and skills, you have to remind yourself how much you don't know outside your area of expertise, because otherwise you'll get used to being the person with all the answers. Story 42, very good friend of mine believes ivermectin cures COVID. The Comet Pizza place is a child ring, and we're going to be in a post-scarcity world in the next few years due to the rise of AI. He also used to believe metaverse was going to be the next big thing, to the point that he bought property in it. New York legalized post-birth abortions. Wayfair was selling kids. It sounds like this guy is a nut, or maybe one of those mega idiots, but it's not the case. He's just easily influenced. What makes him smart is you can change his mind with solid evidence. Story 43, that he can improve. This dude could run conglomerates. He's got the management skills and the recall to hold people accountable. Not to mention a great work ethic and a general curiosity to keep him grounded. Unfortunately, he's decided he's stuck. It breaks my heart. Story 44. I know a woman who worked for the Forest Service and does land surveys. She will document very old trees and plants that are protected and should prevent land development. She is a new Earth creationist. Imagine documenting plants that are 12,000 years old and still believing the Earth is only 6,000, 10,000 years old. Story 45. Shocking number of doctors I've spoken to are clinging to ignorance on medical topics, even while the medical literature has been updated for years. For example, many did not get the memo that ferritin under 30 is an absolute iron deficiency. They still think extremely low ferritin is fine if the person has not yet clicked into what they think of as anemia, which is the last stage of iron deficiency. Some won't even test for ferritin. You can show them the medical journals and directives, and they stubbornly cling to obsolete definitions from school. It is disgraceful. Story 46. People's height is determined by genetics, meaning everyone is the average of their father's height and mother's height. Successful businessman and great leader, but the dude was literally taller than both his parents. Story 47. Luckily, no one in my life believes in any completely mad ideas. My example is not as crazy as some others, but it's still about a very stupid belief from a supposedly intelligent person. LOL. I had one very prestigious English lit professor at university who was seriously close-minded about anything writing that wasn't classic, realistic drama, fantasy, horror, and sci-fi, are just for kids according to him. Even now, I still hear from younger people like my sister who goes to the same university that he's stuck on this idea that fantasy is just about having fun and building lore, like authors in those genres have nothing real to say with their work. And this guy teaches English literature, clearly never heard of Philip Pullman, C.S. Lewis, Asimov, Tolkien, Ursula Le Guin, George R.R. Martin, Frank Herbert, Orwell. Classic case of being educated without actually being smart, lol. Story 48. My uncle went to a very prestigious college and got his degree in biology. He then went on to get his PhD studying something involving nature like biospheres, ecospheres, and whatnot. He can talk about things like Schrodinger's cat for hours and hours. Wall is his favorite Pixar movie. He does not believe humans cause climate change. Story 49. My grandma used to refer to my grandpa as the dumbest smart man she knew. He was incredibly insightful mechanically, well-read, and extremely witty. He legitimately believed that wind only blew from the east because Earth only rotates in one direction. Story 50. My old landlord was a massive inspiration and idol to me. But one day I bought booze that was Apollo 11 themed. His response was, the first moon landing was fake. My response was, okay, boomer, he's still a lovely soul. Story 51. My friend legitimately believes Malaysian Flight 370 was teleported out of the sky by future tech, and that's why it was never found. It's a thing, it's wild. Story 52. Had a former friend who I greatly respected the ability to articulate and back up her positions of, even if I disagreed with them. Then Israel invaded Palestine, and she started bending over backwards to justify it not being a genocide with arguments with holes like Swiss cheese, eventually declaring that Israel needed to be an ethnic state to be safe, and saying some absolutely vicious things to another Jewish friend of mine who refused to get on board with the ethno-nationalism, which sunk the friendship forever. It was scary and sad to watch her get radicalized in real time. Story 53. I know this woman currently doing her PhD in climate change and is an environmental scientist, and she believes history conspiracy theories such as giants and whatever the Graham Hancock makes you want to believe in his ancient apocalypto-cusaries. Story 54. A buddy of mine who's about to finish his PhD in mathematics refused to wear a helmet snowboarding until very recently. because he thought it wouldn't make a relevant enough difference. Story 55, my mother thinks Elon Musk is secretly a genius and has comedically doubled down and now calls herself a musket for shits and giggles I should preference by, saying she doesn't support him, nor do I know if she genuinely believes Musk is a genius or is just messing with me. But whenever we talk about the cluster of America and good old Muskie gets brought up, I take like 5 points of psychic damage whenever she calls herself a musket. Story 56, I thought my sisters-in-law were pretty smart. One is an RN. They both thought COVID was a farce, and the RN is actively trying to talk her kids into not vaccinating her grandchildren for anything like polio, etc. Story 57, that vaccinated people shedding coronavirus is what put all those people in hospitals during the pandemic, which made it impossible to find a bed for her mother for a non-coronavirus-related need. Story 58, in Cool Hand Luke, when Paul Newman is getting his kicked, the man punching him says, "Stay down." Newman gets back up, gets knocked down, "Stay down." Newman gets back up, gets knocked down. Prisoners walk away in disgust. "Stay down." Newman gets back up. Newman gets hit again. "Stay down." Newman gets back up. The prisoner hiding Newman walks away in disgust. Newman is swinging at nobody. PhD in chemistry thinks Newman lost the fight. Story 59, ID like to say all sauces are condiments, but not all condiments are sauces. ID also like to say relish is too chunky to be a sauce, but I am 100 open to this discussion. I am here for it. Story 60, just want to say, the vast majority of Christians do not believe the earth is 6,000 years old. Don't let these posts convince you that we're all the same. Story 61, probably that they, as a doctor, still believe weight loss is the answer to everything, brilliant, compassionate, top of their class, and still prescribing smaller bodies like it's a cure-all, even though science shows most people can't sustain weight loss long-term, even though weight cycling is more harmful than staying fat. Even though health is way more complex than a number on a scale, you can know everything about the body and still miss what it's telling you. Story 62, my mom is a doctor of physical therapy and university professor, but doesn't believe reindeer are real. She thinks they are made up, like Santa. No amount of showing her pictures, videos of real reindeer, or introducing her to actual live reindeer in the flesh can convince her they really exist. It's actually ridiculously frustrating. Story 63, a friend's parents forced religion on them during childhood. They said they will never allow their child to attend church. I asked, what if your child wants to go to church? They said they would not allow it. I said, well, that's basically the same thing your parents did, just in reverse. They argued that it was not. I said, you are not allowed to make an informed decision for yourself regarding religion, but you think it's okay to do the same to your child because you somehow think it's different. Story 64, that minority communities in the U.S. will be happy if the government gives them resources without any admission of the historical traumas inflicted upon them then and now. Story 65, my mother is so incredible. She's one of the smartest, most clever people I know. She believes that vaccines cause autism. Also, she truly thinks they're putting litter boxes in classrooms. Mother, use your brain. You don't have the excuse of stupidity. Story 66, my dad is hands down the smartest person I know. I really respect him on so many levels despite all his flaws. He's a strong African man, but he's also a Trump-Israel supporter, and it drives me nuts. I can't for the life of me understand why. Story 67, I don't believe in recycling and think the EPA should be dissolved. All because they believe God is predetermined when Earth will end, so it's pointless to try to save anything or make the planet last longer. Story 68, my dad believes that there's a galactic federation governing the universe, and there are evil aliens sowing chaos on Earth, which also segues into the Illuminati pulling strings around the world. Oh, and don't forget the Jews control everything. Story 69, probably not the most intelligent, but very bright. In any case, he believes that the moon landings veer hoaxed on the basis that computers were too primitive back then. Story 70, I had a friend in school who was always top of the class and eventually went into medicine. She once told me that recycled toilet paper was gross because someone else had already wiped their bum with it. She was about 17 at the time. Story 71, my parents just told me they felt Osama bin Laden's death should have been verified and that it was weird how he was instantly thrown into the ocean afterwards. Story 72, voted for Brexit. To be fair, they're a lifelong Eurosceptic who voted against us joining in the first place. Also politically left-wing. Not all Brexiteers are on the right. Story 73, that they don't believe anything which will later turn out to be nonsense. I know a sociologist who specializes in conspiracy theories and how they propagate. She says that almost everyone believes at least one or two. They just don't see it that way. It's really helped me to be more open-minded and less entrenched in my beliefs when presented with evidence. Story 74, my grandmother, topped her university, BHU, Taught herself English, Konkani, Marathi, Urdu. She believes that Modi is somehow good for India, and that in a nation with 80 Hindu population, Hindus are in danger. Story 75 that Trump is actually making America great again when he is actually ruining it. The dude has a PhD in organic chemistry. I don't even know how anyone that intelligent can be so stupid and brain dead. Story 76, I am frequently reminded that the intelligent people in my life believe that God commanded Joseph Smith to have with a 14-year-old girl and dozens of others, and they get to become gods and create entire planets of offspring with their polygamous wives in the afterlife. Story 77, my dad. Nobody wants to work, and in regards to my disabled status, you're not really disabled. It's just 100x harder for you to do everything than most people. That's disability defined. Story 78, I know some people believe a dude was killed and then brought back to life days later, and now him and his dad judge humans from the clouds they live on. Story 79, multiple degrees, including a medical license. An absolute intellectual unit of a human being. People straight up call them to ask for life, and business mentorship and advice has taught business and medicine and saved thousands of lives without being hyperbolic. Believe social media is in no way able to augment their opinion, or that echo chambers on social media exist, is currently convinced we're 6 months away from living in The Handmaid's Tale. SMH. Story 80, communion in Catholic Church. I argue with people who insist communion is in fact body of Christ. It's symbolic to me. It was a wafer, I see it, tasted it, and if it was in fact body of Christ, it's cannibalism. Story 81, I honestly cannot deal with stupid people. But what's worse is the educated and accomplished individuals that are die-hard maggots. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Had some redemption this week, when 2 of them talked to me furious about what that idiot is doing in D.C. SMH. Story 82, in God. I have highly intelligent family members with PhDs that know a lot about specific aspects of reality, but when it comes to religion, all logic and science they know that would refute to go out the window, they close their eyes and bow their heads and utter cult nonsense before meals. Blows my mind, honestly. Story 83, 2 of the senior engineers at my work are convinced that the U.S. blew up the Twin Towers and think the rest of us are ignorant for not agreeing with them. Story 84, I know, a PhD chemist, excelling scientist, really thoughtful, inventive, deeply considers a problem, and always has solutions. Also can program in multiple languages, which has been saving grace in different projects. Smokes a pack a day. When you ask him if he's worried about cancer, says not a problem, he sleeps next, crystals forgot which type. Second place goes to woman who was on my floor freshman year of undergrad. She was an evolutionary biology major. Ended up graduating magna laude. Also, strict creationist. Story 85, I'm not sure who the most intelligent person I know is, to be honest. Let's say, person 1, she doesn't believe she's intelligent and talented. It's obvious to everyone else. Just not to her. Person 2, she is not superstitious. But she does not, for example, leave the coat hanger on the bed because in her culture, it's considered to bring bad luck.